Hello everyone. I would like to give you a brief introduction to the thinkFinance Backtester, which you can open by clicking on this button here in the main window. So let's do an example. Let's assume I want to backtest one of the books in my portfolio, for example this book here, my US equity book. So I'm highlighting this book in the main window and I'm opening the backtester. So this is the main window of the backtester. And if you just want to run a backtest, all you have to do is you click on the backtest button here. And you see the chart shows the backtest in blue versus a market benchmark in red. Now the backtest has been calculated by reevaluating the portfolio back in time on a weekly basis. And it's important to mention that at each valuation date, thinkFinance is not only calculating the market value of the portfolio, but also runs 500 historical scenarios using the previous 500 trading days before the valuation date to calculate the value at risk back in time. So instead of looking at the market value back in time, I can also look at the market value of the backtest and the value at risk back in time, which you see here. So this is the backtest in blue and the value at risk of the book back in time in red. You can also look at the value at risk divided by the market value, which is basically the relative riskiness of the book back in time. And you can look at the realized P&L versus the value at risk, which you see here. And this chart shows you in which weeks the realized P&L exceeded the value at risk estimate at the beginning of the week. So these are the so-called backtesting exceptions, which are these spikes here. So let's move back to the market value plot. Now you can also choose the benchmark you want to compare your backtest to. For example, I can choose here the S&P 500. And it's important to mention that you have all the standard plotting functions of thinkFinance here. For example, you can add moving averages to your plot. You can look at the historical return distribution here of your backtest versus the benchmark. You can look at period returns, so yearly returns, or you can look at the risk return chart where basically the average yearly returns and the average yearly volatilities are compared of the backtest and the benchmark. Now, a very interesting function I would like to mention is the so-called strategy function down here. What this means is now the backtest that you see here was basically the current portfolio reevaluated back in time. Now, what you can do here is in the strategy function, instead of just taking the current portfolio back in time, you can assume a regular rebalancing of the portfolio. For instance, if I choose yearly rebalancing, then the backtester will rebalance the weights in my book back to the original weights on a yearly basis. So thereby you can simulate rebalancing strategies over long periods of time. So let's do that. Let's choose yearly rebalancing. And I click on the backtesting button again. And you see the performance of this backtest has changed considerably, simply because I'm looking at a different strategy now. I'm looking at a strategy that rebalances the portfolio weights back to the current weights over the past decades. And the strategy function is quite powerful, especially if you use them for derivatives. And I would like to show you that in the second example. So let's close the backtester. I go back to the main window, and you see in the main window I've got two structured products here. One capital protected certificate and one barrier reverse convertible, both on the S&P 500. And I would like to backtest a long-term investment strategy in these two products. So I'm highlighting these two products and I'm opening the backtester. Now, one thing to remember is that structured products typically have a lifetime of about 1 year. And it wouldn't make sense to backtest one and the same structured products over 20 years back in time. Instead, what I can do here is I go to the strategy menu. Once again, I want to backtest a yearly rebalancing, which means I want to assume that back in time, on a yearly basis, I reinvest the payoff of a product into a new product that also has a lifetime of 1 year. So I want to simulate a rolling investment strategy into a structured product over long periods of time. So therefore, I choose a yearly rebalancing, which means I always invest in yearly products and rebalance into a new yearly product. I want to do this strategy book by book or product by product. So the 2 products that I imported into the backtester will be treated individually. And what I also want to do is I want to reset strikes, bonds, and barriers at each rebalancing. So at each rebalancing, the new product that is created by the same composition rule as the previous product. So this is the most realistic backtest you can do to backtest a rolling investment strategy into a structured product over long periods of time. So I said yearly rebalancing, book by book backtest, and reset bonds and derivatives at each rebalancing. So now I click on the backtesting button. And here is the market value of both products combined, but I would like to look at them individually. So I click on this button here, the book by book view or product by product view. And here you see the long-term rolling investment strategy of the capital protected certificate in blue and the long-term rolling investment strategy into the barrier reverse convertible in red. And both products are on the S&P 500, so let's use the S&P 500 as a benchmark. And once again, it's interesting to look at, for example, the yearly returns of these 2 strategies versus the benchmark. And you see both of them are safer than the benchmark in the sense that they don't have these amazing losses in some years. You can look at the risk return chart where you basically compare long run return and volatility figures. And here you see that the barrier reverse convertible seems to have an even lower average volatility than the capital protected certificate. So it looks like it's a safer product. However, you should bear in mind that the barrier reverse convertible is quite safe unless the barriers hit, in which case you can lose a lot of money. That's why it's actually more important here to look at the drawdowns over long periods of time, which you can do by clicking on the underwater plot here. And here I will exclude the benchmark for a second. And what you see here is the maximum drawdowns over time of the capital protected certificate and the barrier reverse convertible. And you see exactly what I mentioned before. Sometimes the barriers hit and the barrier reverse convertible loses a lot more money than the capital protected certificate. So when you compare long run risk figures, it really depends on what you look at, whether you look at volatility or drawdowns. And let's move back to the market values. And you see, even in the market value plot, you see the barrier reverse convertible sometimes loses money because the barriers hit. So that concludes my introduction to the thinkFinance backtester. If you would like to know more about the backtester or any other function within thinkFinance, then please visit our website thinkfinance.eu. Thank you for watching and goodbye.